5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Mixdown.
Hey guys, welcome to the Mixdown, the show where Adam and I answer all of life's curiosities and mysteries because we know everything and we're always right.
Nailed it.
Each week we will spoon feed you a 3-course meal of discussions that will tantalize your palate and hopefully keep you coming back for more.
Tantalize. We will tantalize.
I'm sure your taste buds have been tantalized for the last 10 episodes. This is episode number 11, I believe. And we have a very special guest joining us in the studio today. We have Mr. J.D. Fiedler. Some of you may know him for a variety of projects that he's been in around the Black Hills for a number of years. And so we are super excited to have him on the podcast today.
Welcome.
Oh, man. It's good to be here. And it's always nice that somebody knows me.
Yeah.
That is nice, right?
It's a great feeling.
So let's jump into it. Today, our appetizer, as we do, have some weird news stories. Our appetizer is called I'm Only Mostly Dead.
I'm only mostly dead.
Yeah, you got to say it in the Monty Python voice. So apparently...
Just a flesh wound.
It's there you go.
flesh
It's merely
wound.
a flesh wound.
It's talking about things standing the test of time right there.
That's right. So apparently a woman, this happened in Australia, apparently a woman thought her boyfriend had died and then she bumped into him a few years later at a restaurant. So, okay, here's the story.
Let's hear it.
It sounds like a plot straight out of an Agatha Christie novel. A woman is told her ex-boyfriend has died and grieves the loss, only to come across him a few years later very much alive and working in a local restaurant. This utterly unbelievable scenario is one that an Australian woman known only as Rachel is said to have found herself in. So I might add that Rachel was 18 years old, so this is a young budding romance. This isn't.
Oh, no.
So it's probably even worse. Heartbreak at those ages seems to be a little bit more dire.
And how long later? What?
Let's see. I believe it was 2 years. It says the relationship seemed like any other teenage romance. She described him as being really nice. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a dingo involved in this?
There had to be.
There had to be.
There's got to be a dingo in here somewhere.
You can't have an Australian story without at least a dingo and a kangaroo somewhere. However, things took a bit of a turn when her boyfriend, who cannot be named for legal reasons, lost his job and asked to borrow hundreds of pounds from her to live on. He claimed, he put some of the money back, but when they broke up a few months later, he claimed he refused to pay the rest and stopped replying to her messages. Now, this is the fun part. Then his mom, texted her and said, "My son died." So she had a bunch of his money that, he had a bunch of her money that he had borrowed, hadn't paid back. All of a sudden, she gets a text that says, "Hey, my son died." And so then Rachel says she grieved the loss in her own way and eventually moved on. So fast forward 2 years. While back in her hometown with a friend, she stopped by a restaurant where she was stunned to discover her ex-boyfriend very much alive and working there.
I'm only mostly dead.
Oh
my God.
She went into shock, she says.
I'm sure she did.
This guy wasn't a musician, was he?
He kind of seems like it. He's like,
Sounds like a musician.
how can I get out of this?
Let's see. There's only one way out of this.
Got to fake my death, guys.
Mom. Tell her I'm dead.
I think it's funny that the mom went along with it. My mom would kill me. My mom would say, no.
How do you think you're going to get away with something like that?
I don't know. And I wonder how big the town is. If that was in Spearfish, obviously that wouldn't work in Spearfish, South Dakota. It had to be like a big city like Melbourne or something.
I don't know. That's great. Good job. I kind of... Maybe she's crazy.
Which one? The lady? The mom?
He couldn't figure out how to get away from her, so he had to fake his death.
I'm not going to lie. There's some people like that.
Yeah.
That's the only way out of some relationships is fake your death.
Yep.
Thankfully, I haven't been in those, but I've had some friends. Should have faked their deaths a long time ago.
Don't know how to say this, but I'm dead.
It's occurred to me a couple times.
You've thought about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess disclaimer. If you think JD's dead, he's not. So if you're hearing this,
But we'll do a little more research.
Yeah. Hopefully you haven't faked your death and that this is going to out you or something.
No, but I'll be thinking about it in the future. Here.
All right.
You
Let us know. We can help you out.
Might come in handy.
we can announce it on the podcast.
No,
Everybody, JD's dead. So
Yep.
if he owes you money, you can stop looking for him. All right, so let's jump into the main course today. Again, like we said, we are super happy to have JD here with us. Let's jump in. Let's start to talk about when did you start playing music?
Wow, this is a big deal. Pretty much in high school, my father was a pro. I'm from Chicago, and we were living in Chicago. I was born there and lived in the Chicagoland area. And my father was a pro musician for 13 years with WLS Radio back when radio was live radio. And he had his own quartet, and he had some famous musicians working with him. He worked in the Chicagoland area with some brilliant musicians. He played with the Les Elgart Big Band at one time. He did a 3-month stretch with Louis Armstrong playing upright bass, but he was primarily a guitarist and a banjo player, not the 5-string banjo, but the plectrum banjo that you would hear in more music of the day that would be not connected to country music.
Is that a 4-string banjo? Or?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
A tenor or plectrum style.
Huh.
Yeah, long neck or tenor. Yeah.
Nice. So is he the one that taught you how to play guitar, or how did you?
No, I didn't really get moving on guitar until after he died. I did some work in high. I got started in high school and played record hops around Chicago, and then went out to the West Coast after I graduated from high school. The year after my senior year, 66, I went out to California to be part of. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but Bobby Sherman, the singer and the actor, he was part of the Shindig television show.
Wow.
And I went out there with the band, and we were going to be his backup band. And by the time we get out there, Shindig went off the air.
Oh, dang it.
And so here we are, stuck out there. But that was good because I got to see the beginnings of a number of different things. The Mother's invention, Frank Zappa.
Wow.
The Byrds, they would be playing down the street on Sunset Strip. Got to see Sonny and Cher at Ciro's. And I worked the Whiskey A Go-Go with a group opposite the Doors when the Doors were just a local Hollywood, California group.
Wow.
They had no regality to them yet,
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's amazing.
So I did a number of things, and then I worked for Dick Clark Productions for quite a while.
Nice.
And I was part of a pit band that went up and down the California coast. And we played record hops and just it was a great time.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and I got to see the beginnings of a lot of these groups. Like I got to see the beginning of Buffalo Springfield, and like I say, the Doors. I mean, they were kind of a regular at the Whiskey A Go-Go.
Sure.
And at that time, the Whiskey A Go-Go had 2 stages, and one band would play, and as soon as they were done with their set, then the opposite band would play.
Okay.
And
really awesome.
yeah, it was a real kick. And they were just a bunch of guys that we knew locally
Yeah.
at the time. I knew Ray Manzarek, the keyboard player from back in, because he's a Chicago guy, and I knew him.
So you knew him when you lived there?
Yeah, well, I knew him. I knew him to talk to him. I mean, we weren't
Sure.
buddies and all that kind of thing, but I did know him, and I remember seeing him in playing Old Town
Yeah.
with other groups, and then it was interesting to find that here he is out on the West Coast, playing with a group, and they were good and all that. Another thing too, I'm walking down Sunset Boulevard one day, and I think, man, I know that guy, and it turns out to be Eddie Ho, a drummer that used to play with a group called the Troubadours
Okay.
in Chicago, a horn group, which some of the guys in Chicago played in. in this band
Oh, wow.
called the Troubadours. And I said, Eddie, what are you doing? He said, I'm just starting to work with this group that they call themselves the Mamas and the Papas.
No way.
And turns out that he was the studio drummer and road drummer with the Mamas
Really?
and Papas. Yeah. And
Wow.
he was just starting in on that.
That's crazy. How long was he with them? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know for sure, but
Wow.
that's some of my some early day experiences, and it was just nice to be out there.
So what brought you back to, or what brought you to South Dakota?
Oh, that's a long story. Well, a woman, of course.
Yeah, always.
That's
why we're all here.
That's right.
Wait,
That's
like
it.
a woman as far as like you faked your death in California and came out here, or what?
yeah. I had to get out. Well, fortunately, I got out of there alive. I thought when I was coming back, when I was flying back to Illinois, and I was up in the air, I thought, oh man, I got out of there alive. Really, it was that was that intense. you
Yeah.
know.
Wow.
And I was only out there for about 8.5 months.
In California.
Yeah, and I came back because the war was getting down on me, and
Sure.
I turned around and I always knew I was going to be a sailor, so I went off and joined the Navy.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service, by the way.
I was a navigator and proud of it. Was on 3 destroyers and never saw combat, but made it through, and then got out and started back in on music again. And
Good deal.
yeah.
So you came out to South Dakota because of a woman.
Yeah, and how that worked is I was on the road with a road band, and I met her. This is an insane story. I was playing down in Dallas, and we were supposed to play in Houston. That was our next gig. And the agent calls up and said, well, that was canceled, and we're going to send you to Bismarck, North Dakota. And I said, well, what's North Dakota? What does that mean?
Is that in America?
Yeah. So here we are. Here we are down in Dallas, leave at 3 a.m, and it takes us, we go through this ice storm in Kansas and Missouri and all that. And we get up to, long story short, we get up to Bismarck at 8:30 Monday night, half hour later we're on stage playing.
Wow.
And I met my future wife there. She was working the front desk, and one thing leads to another, and and then we lived in Bismarck for a little while, and then we moved down here. We went on vacation, and I fell in love with the area down here. I said, man, I had a Western swing band at the time called Stampede, and we're all based out of Bismarck, and it was really a successful band. And I told the guys, I said, I'm moving to Rapid City. And they all followed me down.
Oh, really?
And I was with them for another, I don't know, probably another couple of years, something like that. And then got out of it and pretty much stayed in the Black Hills area and just jobbed out.
Nice.
Yeah.
So as far as the Black Hills, after you had your that band, what was the next kind of step for your music in the hills?
Yeah, well, yeah. I played a lot of country. I was really into country and Western swing at the time, and a lot of pedal steel. I taught myself how to play pedal steel and was a pedal steel player for, I don't know, well over 20 years. I've been away from it for a long time, and just recently bought another pedal steel and started dinking around with it again.
We gotta, speaking of that, sorry to interrupt, but we gotta hook you up with our friend Eric. I think I've told you about him before.
Yes, you did. Yeah,
But yeah, he plays a mean pedal steel.
Yeah, there's a handful of guys around here.
Is there?
that are
Oh,
very
nice.
good. Joe Wilt plays very good steel.
Okay.
Bobby Humphrey, who was the mainstay with the old Whiskey River Band, plays double neck pedal steel, and
Oh, really?
of course that was my instrument too, double neck.
Oh,
pedal
double
steel.
neck. Okay.
And because I miss that jazz neck. I
Yeah.
got a single neck now, but I do miss that back neck, the jazz neck. But anyway, and those guys are very good, and so yeah, there's a few of us around. I'd love to meet this guy.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I'm sure he'd love to meet you too.
yeah.
So you were playing country. You were playing Western swing.
Yeah. So I'll kind of fast forward a little bit. I went through I worked with Kenny Miller. I guess most people around here still remember Kenny Miller. He died a few years ago, and but anyway, I was with him for 15 or better years, and we played just popular music of the time, some new stuff, some of the old standard rock tunes and things like that. So a wide variety of stuff. And Kenny was great. He was a wonderful guy to work for. Real solid person, very generous. We became very good friends and collaborators, and
Nice.
I co-produced a couple of his album things, and then of course later on he went on and pretty much did a solo act after that, and then like I say, I jobbed out with a lot of different people who were on the air for just I don't know, because I didn't have any particular goal in mind, and then after a while I thought, well, I'm going to start returning to my roots a little bit, which is pretty much mainstream jazz,
Okay.
and not too modern, but kind of some of the things that are a little bit more grounded, and people are when they think of jazz, it's a little bit more easier. It's a little easier to understand than some of the modern things that you hear nowadays, which are exceptional. I mean, there are people that are incredible, doing incredible things.
Yeah.
But this is more of a swing type jazz.
Okay.
I worked with a group called Swing Shift, a quartet. Gary Bloomberg on tenor and alto sax, and John Margolis, who I'm sure you know of, on drums, and Chuck Thomas on bass, and myself on guitar. And I worked with that outfit for several years.
Okay.
And that got me back into playing the tunes that I had once just kind of fooled around with.
Yeah.
And I got more serious about it. So now I have a reasonably extensive repertoire, which eventually leads me to my gypsy jazz group, Le Singe Volant,
Okay.
and which I'd have to set this up. I'd have to say that this pretty much started around 2011, and Tom Wilt and I had been talking about Tom Wilt, the violinist with the Wilt brothers, fiddle player. I had been talking about some Django Reinhardt material, and I had mentioned to him that I'd been wanting to do this for a long time. And I said, I told him, I said, you've got the chops for this. You've got the mental capacity, you've got the spiritual capacity to do this. I said, I do too. And I said, let's you and I start doing a little bit of this and experimenting. And we did. Eventually, to make a long story short, I went through a number of different people, but we got Tom's brother Joe to play rhythm, and I got together with Joe and taught him all of the chords that I was going to use for all of my arrangements. I do all the arranging, and he covered it very quickly, and he basically had things nailed within several months.
Wow.
And it really fine. And I went through a couple of bass players, and eventually threatened Chet Murray with his life that if he didn't play bass in my quartet, that I was going to make life miserable for him. So he became part of the mix. And of course, all three of those guys are the Wilt brothers, literally. I mean, Chet plays upright bass and does an incredible job with both those guys, and they've been together forever since tiny little kids, you know. But we're just going through a kind of regrouping thing right now. I'm working on some heavy arrangements that Tom and I are just starting to work on. I've got one thing I call it the Monster, and what it is 5 swing tunes back to back. Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Lester Young. There's another guy, I can't think of his name right off. But there's 5 swing tunes back to back.
Wow.
And that's going to be our closer. And that's going to be a project. 'Cause
Yeah.
This is heavy duty stuff here.
Yeah.
But things we do with Los Angeles, essentially, the gypsy. We don't play like the gypsies because they have a certain technique that is unique to them.
Yeah.
And we play American swing. In the style of the gypsies. So every time I say I've got a gypsy jazz group, I almost have to throw in a quick disclaimer, because we don't sound like the gypsies. We sound like Americans.
Sure.
And we're playing American swing, and there's nothing wrong with that, because a lot of what the gypsy jazz is based on are American tunes.
Okay.
That are the American swing tunes, and with their interpretation, which is extraordinary, very flamboyant and extremely technical stuff. that, I mean, you know, you hear it for the first time and you think, what planet are these guys from? You know, it's that good. And I've seen them and I've been there. The Lesage Volant was literally born in France. I was over there in 2011. Tom was over there with his girlfriend, who is a French national and has dual citizenship. And
Okay.
so we were all over there. And Tom and I played in this little bar in northeastern France, which is still to this day a hangout for all of these gypsy jazz musicians, because the majority of them are from northeastern France. So this is in Exversheim, France, northeastern France. This little bar is called A La Cheroux. Tom and I played there just one Sunday night. They were having like every month they had the entire neighborhood come to the bar, and they had a big feed.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we just happened to be there at that time. Tom and I walked in, guitar and fiddle in hand, and we didn't know what the outcome was. This ought to be good. You know, the French, you know, you never know what's going to happen with the French. You know, they could turn on you.
Yeah.
You know? But they loved it, and we had great time, and they were feeding us cognac and all that kind of thing.
Well, that's always
So,
good.
and that's always good. So that was our. It wasn't a gig, but I mean, it was the first time, and we just happened to be so lucky to play for the French people.
Huh.
And they didn't throw anything at us, and they didn't kick us out and all that. So,
Nice.
so that was the origin and the beginning of Lesage Volant.
Okay. Was that your first exposure to gypsy jazz when you were in France, or had you heard of that?
Well,
Before.
no. Well, boy, I'd have to put the timeline together. Another thing that I don't know how to answer that. I'd have
No,
to
that's
go,
okay.
I'd have to go back and check. But that was, I mean, that was kind of a telling tale. I mean,
Yeah.
here we are in front of French people, you know, kind of replicating what their musicians do.
Sure.
Or a certain amount of their musicians do. And so, you know, my comment that I made to that I sent you in my email there, that a guy came in and talked to the bartender after we were long gone back in the States, and he said, "Geez, those Americans, they can hold their own with the gypsies."
Nice.
And our French contact that just happened to be in the bar at the same time that these guys were having their conversations,
Wow.
which I can tell you that was Natalie's brother. He said the guy he told us that guy that said exactly that turns out to be Django Reinhardt's nephew.
Really?
I mean, it's to this day it still chokes me up to even think about that.
Yeah.
That here's Django Reinhardt's nephew saying those guys can hold their own with the gypsies.
Now, Django Reinhardt, for our listeners who don't know, is a prolific gypsy jazz artist.
He was primarily the founder, along with Stefan Grappelli,
Okay.
the violinist. And the two of them, back in 1934, started to kick this gypsy jazz thing off. In other words, they started to interpret American music, used American music, American swing, and created their own flavor.
Okay.
Flavor to it,
Nice.
and the rest is history. And to this day, it's a worldwide conglomeration of monster musicians
Wow.
playing this style of music, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exciting. The up-tempo tunes are exciting. The ballads will rip your heart out.
Wow.
There's a tune that we do. We close the night with this tune. It's called "Seul ce soir," which means "alone tonight," and it's a heartbreaker. When I first heard it, I heard the great Jimmy Rosenberg play it, who's another gypsy jazz guitar player. These guys are all related. They're all related. But anyway, I heard him play it, and for the longest time, I thought, how am I ever going to play this tune in front of people? Because every time I'd hear a few bars, and it's so gorgeous and such a heart tug that I thought that I don't know how I'm going to do this. And finally, I got over it, and we do it, and it's on that CD that I gave you.
Right on. I'm going to listen to that.
Soul C'est Soi. That's
On the way home, I'm going to check that out.
It is a gorgeous tune. And so, the entire spectrum of the music and the feeling that comes from it grabbed a hold of me, and it's still got a hold of me. And like I say, we're kind of in the process of regrouping, and we've been away from it. Everybody's been busy and all that, so we want to get back at it, and we want to get out there and let everybody know that we do still exist, and it's going to be better than ever when we crash out again.
Well, let us know when you do crash out, because we'd love to come watch you. Love to send people your way.
You betcha. Thank you so much.
yeah.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So let's transition a little bit. Herb's sitting out there. How'd you meet Herb? How'd you get into?
Oh gosh, Herbie. I've known Herbie forever. Probably originally through the years that I played with Kenny Miller.
Okay.
Herbie worked over at the Sand Creek Trading Post. Had his little restaurant in the back there called the Golden Buffalo, and I would play over there every once in a while with one person or another, and sometimes with Kenny and sometimes with other people in the area, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of times with my group, Los Angeles, we played over there. But I've known Herbie for years, and then Herbie and I share something else too. Herbie's a chef, and I'm a retired chef. I went to school for a subsidiary of Le Cordon Bleu.
Wow.
And so we're both chefs, or I'm kind of I'm retired, but at the ready.
Yeah.
But I think that's a part of my life that is just is kind of sitting on the shelf now. So,
yeah.
But anyway, that was a good thing. So that's part of our relationship, and he's just been a good guy and a friend for a long, long time.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So as far as the Front Porch Band, how did that kind of come together?
I'm not exactly sure. That's something you will have to talk to Herbie about. I'm a part of that. Mm-hmm. There's a number of musicians that have contributed to the works that Herbie has had, specifically Kenny Miller for the vocal, most of the vocal work, not all of it. Mm-hmm. And I see Matt Berry, of course. He's a local guy here.
Is that Lyle Berry's son?
Lyle Berry's son,
okay.
yeah. He was a former guitar student of mine, and
oh wow!
And now I should be taking lessons from him. He's turned into a absolute monster. So, but anyway, yeah. Where were we going with this?
I just was curious how the Front Porch Band came together initially, and I know you said that I'd have to talk to Herb about that.
Yeah, pretty much. What my involvement is basically with two tunes. I was part of the fishing song, and then Herbie came to me with what I named Forever Wounded. He didn't have a title, and he asked me to come up with a title. I came up with Forever Wounded. And he explained the premise behind it. It was dedicated to a couple guys that were killed in Vietnam, and so he presented it to me. He just sat there and played chords and sang it, and I knew immediately what I had to do.
Nice.
I knew absolutely immediately what had to be done, and I could within a day I could see Herbie put me in the position of being the audio producer. So, I thought, well, okay, I need the best voice I can find in the hills, and I knew the musicians. Mm-hmm. I knew who I was going to use. I was going to use my long-time jazz drummer Ray Keller, that also played with the Kenny Miller Band too. But Ray and I have been playing in several different configurations of mainstream jazz trios for years.
Yeah.
So I hired him. Will Waller, of course, who has Sanctuary Studio.
Okay.
Not only was he the engineer, he covered all the keyboard work, the B3 specifically.
Nice.
And I covered, several guitar parts and bass, played bass also on it. And I hired Travis Hansen from Crash Wagon to do the vocals because I felt that it had to be very strong, kind of rock oriented, basic, kind of rock oriented, but heavy. It's got to be heavy because it's a heavy concept here.
Yep.
You know,
And he's got that nice kind of deep tone voice.
When I heard this tune and I started thinking about it, I started thinking about Trace Atkins. You know.
Yeah, that's a very good
And I said,
comparison.
who around here? I said, there's only one guy, and I know he'll do it because I'll threaten him. You know? I do a lot of threatening. but anyway, and I said, man, I need you for this. And I gave him a rough out, and he said, oh, God, yeah. I said, he says, yeah, you bet, you know. And he did an incredible job. He just did a beautiful job. So, you know, we went in the studio. I had everything charted out, and we rehearsed it down, and it came off pretty quickly, and you know, we got a nice product out of it.
Right
And
on.
Brian Leslie did all the video.
Yeah, that's right. You guys
creation.
just released a video.
Yeah,
Of that.
I thought he did an extraordinary job.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I don't know the first thing about what goes into that really, but to me, maybe that's a good thing that I don't know because it totally knocked me out.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it's a phenomenal video.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to mention that the Front Porch Band, the album Playing for Spit Spelled Backwards, is available for purchase on thefrontporchband.com. Also, the entire video of Forever Wounded is available for purchase as well. Digital download on thefrontporchband.com as well. You can follow them on Facebook. You can find them on YouTube. And as far as your Gypsy Jazz Band, do you guys have any social media? Do you guys have how do you get in contact with people?
I just bulk email everybody.
You just bulk email.
I tell you, I'm like the Neanderthal of IT.
Right on.
You have no idea. In fact, I'm going to have a little conversation with you because I really need counseling.
Yeah.
It's too long a story for now.
Well, yes.
Lucky for you, we offer counseling services.
Yes,
here
we
at the
do.
Music
We
Room.
do.
At a moderately exorbitant price. Right?
Yeah. Well, when you guys do have that contact information, we'll be sure to pass that along.
You betcha.
So, all right.
There's something in the works down the road.
Yeah.
Here, you know, I got to get a little bit more educated on things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you for joining us today. We got a little dessert story to talk about. This one is quite interesting.
This is different.
Okay, this one says, marijuana-filled balloon was inside a man's nostril for 18 years. How?
I don't know. Let's find
the
out. It looks like
world?
a story.
All right. This is Australian too. What's going on in Australia?
I don't know.
Faking deaths and
There's a
putting pot up their noses and
There's a dingo in here somewhere.
there has to be. If not, I'm going to write it in there.
Does it say at the end of the story where the guy faked his death that she was not only appalled, but she wanted her balloon full of weed back?
Yeah, it's the same guy. It probably is. This says a team of Australian doctors said they removed a marijuana-filled balloon from inside the nose of a man who inserted the object into his nostrils 18 years earlier. The doctors at Westmead Hospital in Sydney wrote in the British Medical Journal's case reports that the patient, a former prison inmate, recalled his girlfriend had smuggled a small balloon filled with cannabis to him inside the visit during a visit in the prison 18 years ago. The man said he had inserted the balloon into his right nostril to evade detection. Despite effectively smuggling the package past the prison guards, he then accidentally pushed the package deeper into his nostril and mistakenly believed he had swallowed it. I think you would know if you had swallowed it.
I don't know.
Maybe not. The doctors wrote a report which was titled "A Nose Out of Joint." Nice.
Oh, I get it.
So
get
from
it.
there, the doctor said to the man, who is now 48, they said he had the balloon in his nose for 18 years before a sinus infection and nasal obstruction, and related headaches had led him to seek medical attention. The medical team performed a CAT scan, recovered the rhinolith, a stone that had developed when the balloon was enveloped in calcium salts over time. So this thing was in his nose so long it literally
Turned into a rock.
It literally turned into a rock. So
And encapsulated.
and, oh my gosh. So they removed it, discovered it was a balloon filled with decaying plant matter. The man recalled the cannabis smuggling incident and told the doctors about it. The team said the case marked the first reported case of prison-acquired marijuana-based rhinolith.
My goodness gracious. So the dude got a headache, went in, they pulled something out of his nose, and
They're like, dude, you got a rock in your nose. They pull it out, and they
I
cut the
can pic-
rock open.
he's going, well, there was this one time.
I do remember this one time I
It
had
said
something
a
in my
couple
nose.
times. He recalled, so he had to remember, there was a couple of times.
Well,
Yeah,
no-
one time.
Well, knowing that this is a prison story, it's miraculous that this actually came out of his nose and not somewhere else.
Yeah, no
Right?
kidding. I'm sure there's those stories too.
Oh,
It
yeah.
did say it was the first. Well, I guess maybe not. Never mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to talk about that, but
Interesting. Well, there you have it.
All
if you
right.
need a safe place to store your weed for 18 years.
we got the answers right in your old proboscis. So shove it up there. Alrighty. Well, JD, thank you again for joining us today. Guys, we just want to remind you we have openings for drums, guitar, bass, ukulele, piano lessons, all that kind of fun stuff. We have our Try It package on sale now in November and December. That is 4 lessons for $99. That's a great deal. You're not going to find that anywhere else. Come try it out. Come see if you like it. We can promise you that you'll have a great time.
That's right. Do you have any words of wisdom for the listeners before we take off?
No, there's no wisdom here.
Nothing.
No, you won't find any wisdom here.
Well, done deal then. No words of wisdom. We will see you on the next one.